Meanings of the Quran Volume 7. Surah 13 Surah Ar-Raid, Chapter 13. By Allama Ghulam Ahmed Parwez. Translated in English by Dr. Ejaz Rasool. Audio book made by Abid Hussain. 2 Surah Ar-Raid, Chapter 13. Take a look through previous volumes of the meanings of the Quran and you will see that the Quran has related details about the harnessing of nature with great frequency and repetition. From this there were two objectives in view. Firstly, man in his age of infancy had accorded a divine status to the manifestations of nature, and declaring these to be being gods and goddesses, he worshipped them. These beliefs were also deeply rooted among the Arabs, 53:19-27. Repudiating these beliefs of man, which were based on ignorance, the Quran stated that these forces of nature do not possess divine power, these are all busy in the fulfillment of the program defined by Allah, hence, are not themselves gods. Secondly, these forces are busy in action according to defined laws. The potential to understand them has been placed within man, and whichever nation acquires knowledge of these laws will harness these forces. As a result, Adam will become deserving of prostration by the Malaika. See the meanings of the Quran, Volume 2, Chapter 1. Ar-Raid, thundering of the clouds, is also included among these Malaika. As previously stated, it has been quoted in a hadith as well that Ar-Raid is a Malik within the Malaika. It is possible that the surah has been given the name Ar-Raid in view of this significance. The word Ar-Raid appears in verse 13:12, in this surah and also in verse 2:19, of Surah Al-Baqarah. Although knowledge of the sciences has been referred to at various places in different parts of the meanings of the Quran, this subject is dealt with in detail at the end of Surah Al-Araf in Volume 6, which can be referred to again. Keeping these explanations in mind, there will be no requirement therefore for a detailed explanation about whatever arises in the current Surah, Ar-Raid, regarding the manifestations of the forces of nature. At that point we will move on after quoting only a reference. The first verse of the surah is the proclamation of Allah all-knowing, all-wise, and all-nourishing is that these are the verses of the Book of Allah, the Quran, i.e. the laws of that divine code which are sent down to you via wahi from your Rabb, and which is absolutely based on haqq, but despite this most people do not accept Iman in its truth. 13:1. Immediately following this there is reference to the system of the universe. This is from that Allah who has suspended such gigantic stellar bodies in the heights of the heavens. And as you can witness, there are no columns supporting these, it is solely His law of gravity on the basis of which these are established, because the central control of authority is in the hands of Allah. In the same way He is holding the sun, the moon, and everything in the chains of His law. Each one of them is continuing to follow its orbit for a specified time. In this way the all-encompassing law of this Allah manages affairs, Yodabir ul-Amr, in the external universe. That same Allah explains clearly and explicitly that law of His according to which man should live his life so that you can gain certainty of this fact that you, too, have to face this same law, you cannot escape it and run away anywhere. 13:2. Such gigantic stellar bodies being suspended in the heavens without visible columns and busily engaged in motion is a stupendous phenomenon and points to a great scientific reality. Your eyes may be searching for these columns on the support of which these stellar bodies are anchored. The Quran states that these columns exist but are not visible, you cannot see them. This column is a force of mutual attraction of gravity due to which these stellar bodies are suspended, but this gravitational force is an imperceptible and invisible entity. These same words have also appeared in verse 31:10. The other point worthy of attention is that all these manifestations of nature are in motion for a defined term. From this it is evident that this universe was neither in existence forever before, because it is a creation, nor is it forevermore. 31:29. By stating Yodabir ul-Amr, directed via Amr, this fact has been made clear that this system of the universe is not functioning automatically like a machine, its creator is behind it, and it is in action according to his planning. After this, the fundamental point has been expressed in the following words so that you become assured that you have to meet your Rabb. The reason for explaining this is to make it plain that the Quran is not a book of science in which there is mention of the process of laws and the manifestation of nature, and no more than this. It is declared that the purpose of this book is to take you towards a great objective. And that objective is this, that in the same way in which the system of nature manifests its conclusions according to a code of laws, the deeds of man himself also establish their outcomes according to Allah's law of requital. By mentioning the laws of nature, the aim is to draw our attention towards the law of requital. An analysis has been carried out in the meanings of the Quran, Volume 2, about the mutual connection between the system of nature and the law of requital. The initiation of this law is from the system of Rabu'iyat, which is spread throughout the whole of the universe. Just consider how his law of Rabu'iyat is functioning in the universe. He has spread it out. Mada al-ard. Despite the earth being round. In this way, so that you can inhabit it easily, and made mountains in it, and initiated the system of rivers from them, and produced varieties of pears of every fruit in it, and defined such a procedure, rotation of the earth, that through this the darkness of night covers the light of day. How many great signs of the harmony of our law are in these matters for those people who reflect and reason. Then also reflect on this, that various parts of the land are contiguous to each other, but in these, some have gardens of grapes, some have fields, in some places there are date palms. Some among these sprout from one root and then separate, and some grow independently from their own separate roots. All these are irrigated by the same water, but fruits of different trees are different in their properties, one has a certain property while another has some other property. In this way, each one has a distinctiveness over another. For those who use intellect and reason, there are great signs about our system of Rabu'iyat in these matters also. 13:3-4. Different trees grow from one earth only, their soil is the same, they are irrigated by the same type of water, but despite this, their fruits are different. This difference in fruits is due to a difference in the seed. Whatever kind of seed it is, the same will be the fruit. Similarly, the fruits of human life are also in accordance with those deeds which are committed by man. Whatever the kinds of deeds of someone, his life will be of the same kind. Furthermore, Mada al-ard is stated here, i.e., despite the earth being round, it has been spread out in such a way that human beings live on it and crops also grow on it for their nourishment. At another place it is stated that it is rotating, taking you along with it. 31:10. This is that rotation which, apart from other matters, is the cause for the alternation in night and day. There are also signs in this whole system of a supreme purpose, but these signs can only be seen by those who make use of their intellect and reasoning. The greatest sign among these signs is that from such a seed in which no glimpse of any life is visible, a fluttering plant emerges, which having obtained nourishment becomes a fully fledged tree and becomes laden with fruit. From this we can relate it to the life of the hereafter of man. Despite such numerous signs of the law of creation and nourishment of Allah, O man, if you wish to hear something strange, then these people say that when we become dust through decomposition, then will we be reborn in a new form? The fact is that these people, who think that the life of a human being is only this physical life, there is nothing beyond it, deny the law of creation and Rabu'iyat of Allah, because the very meaning of Rabu'iyat is to cause something to reach to the final point of its completion, and the last point of completion of a human being is not his death. Those who say this are the ones who are in chains, in ignorance and worship of forefathers, in such a way that their vision simply cannot reach far. They simply cannot make use of broader perception and wider knowledge. By denying the expanses of life, these people do not harm anyone else. Instead, by burning their own pastures of the future in this manner, they make a heap of ashes in such a way that no possibility of development remains in these. 13:5. Here, the denial of the life of the hereafter is declared to be the equivalent of denial of the law of Rabu'iyat of Allah. At numerous places in the Quran, imbuing fresh life to the dead land is declared to be the working of the law of Rabu'iyat. 30:19. This same law of Rabi'at operates in connection with the new life of man, 35:9. The process of death and new life also continues in the life of nations in this world, as well as in the life of the hereafter. Regarding this struggle in worldly life, it is stated, the consequence of this same short-sightedness of theirs is that, rather than waiting for the pleasant and beautiful results of your endeavors to manifest before them, they demand from you that the destruction which you warn them about, to bring it on quickly. They have no knowledge of this, that prior to them such accounts of the destruction of nations have passed by which have become fables in the world. In this connection, the law of your Rabb is that despite the inequities and injustices of people, a respite is to be kept between the deed and its outcome, so that during this time period those people who, giving up the wrong path, adopt the right one, they become protected from the impending destruction. But those people who do not take advantage of this respite period are destroyed. The fact is this, that the law of requital of Allah happens to be very severe in pursuing deeds. 13:6. One uniqueness of Quranic teaching is also that by removing the wishful thinking of the human mind habituated to the allurement of magic and miracles, it has imprinted on it the importance and application of the law of cause and effect. Whatever spectacular innovations of human civilization and culture dazzle our eyes today, these are all owed to this Quranic revolution. This was that same revolution which the Arab mindset of the era of ignorance was not accepting easily. Rasulullah was teaching them about the law, and they would demand miracles. These people who do not accept the truth of this code of laws do not, in fact, understand the significance of the law. This is why they object that why does this messenger not show any visible miracle? Whereas your task is only to make them aware of this law of Allah, that if you remain on the wrong path, then its consequence will be nothing but destruction and ruin. Then there also is another thing, that if your message had only been for these people, then the matter may have been different. But you have been sent as a guide for every, present and future, peoples, hence, your responsibility is only this, that you present the universal immutable laws of Allah which are beyond the limits of time and space, and by reflecting and reasoning in them every nation can gain guidance. 13:7. The last sentence in this verse, a guide for all people, is evidence of Rasulullah being the last Nabi. The guidance presented by Rasulullah, which is both complete and preserved, is for every nation. Hence, there is no need for another Nabi by any nation. In verse 13:6, it is stated that there is a respite between a deed and the appearance of its tangible outcome, i.e., the seed of a deed bears fruit after passing through various stages. This has been elaborated through various examples. The Quran states, what has been noted above about an interval between a deed and its consequence, a glaring example of this is before them, how the interval between the conception of a child and its birth is inevitable. All this takes place according to Allah's knowledge, who knows what is within the abdomen of a female, and what things in the uterus keep decreasing and what things keep increasing. Furthermore, which child reaches to its completion, and which one does not reach to its completion. This all takes place according to those scales which have been defined by Allah, indahu bi'miqdarin. According to the scales of that Allah who knows what the existing condition is of something, and through what stages it is going to pass through in the future, which ones of its potentials have been manifested and which are still concealed. His law is possessor of great powers and is established at the most high point, such an exalted point where the hand of no one can reach it to make any kind of change and alteration in it. It is beyond the reach of everyone. 13:8-9. At the end of verse 13:8, it is stated indahu bi'miqdarin, with him in due proportion, from which an important point becomes elaborated. The question which arises is that, regarding those matters about which Allah declares that their knowledge is with Allah, does this mean that knowledge of these is solely with Allah and not with anyone else, or can man also acquire knowledge about them? A discussion about this has been carried out in the Meanings of the Quran, Volume 5, in which it is professed that knowledge can be obtained by man, too, about those matters regarding which Allah has established laws. but man cannot gain knowledge of those matters which are not under any physical laws. In verse 13:8, when it was stated that this all takes place according to those scales, this meant those matters about which laws have been established. In relation to the manifested and hidden matters of the universe, refer to the meanings of the Quran, Volume 2. As has been affirmed already, the aim from whatever has been said in the Quran about the laws of nature and the manifestations of the universe is not that the Quran is a textbook of the sciences. It is a code for the guidance of man, hence, the purpose from these matters is to present evidence in support of these laws which have a connection with human life. After discussing the laws of nature in the above verses, the Quran states, "The sight of his law is so refined that if anyone among you hides something or manifests it, or some person walks around openly in daylight or in the darkness of night, moves around doing something or other, all are the same to him." 13:10. Regarding the securing of human deeds, explanations have appeared at numerous places in the Quran. In the above verses it is stated that Allah has knowledge about every deed of man. In the first part of the next verse, it is as if the practical process of preserving these deeds has been described. For the functioning of his law of requital, there are such forces appointed in front and behind every person which, by chasing every deed of his, make it reach its outcome, 82:10-13. And every deed of man becomes preserved and must always produce its result. 13:11. Human deeds are in reality the visible manifestations of his thoughts, psychological inclinations and dispositions, his longings, desires, his objectives and goals. In the explanation of verse 835, in the meanings of the Quran, Volume 6, it has been written that whether it is an individual or a nation, their life is dependent on their way of thinking and psyche. Until there is a change in them, no change can ensue in their life. The Quran defines the factors through which this change occurs using the comprehensive term of Iman. It states, "And since a nation is only a collection of individuals, hence, going forward, this very law is also applicable to nations. The consequence of this law is that, Allah does not alter the condition of any nation until that nation changes its own state, i.e., until it brings a change within its own heart and mind." 13:11. Hence, the way in which this is an established principle that whatever bounties of life are available to some nation, they are not snatched from it while it has the ability to retain these within itself. 853, in the same way, this is also an immutable law that when destruction comes to a nation as a consequence of its deeds, then no one can halt it, nor there can be any helper and supporter of this nation. But if it returns to the law of Allah, then it can be helped. 13:11. When destruction reaches a nation due to transformations in their psyche, no one can halt it. But Allah does not allow man to become hopeless. He states that except that nation which has lost the ability to transform their psyche, there is the possibility of an alteration in circumstances for it. The latter part of the verse, 13:11, directs the vision towards the hope of obtaining life once more, and then, again from an example from the displays of the universe for this assured reality is made to be understood. The Quran states, "In this despairing condition resulting from destructions, in order to assess the state of hope resulting from a return to the divine law, reflect again on the universe, and see how in one event hope and despair come mixed together. You see that lightning sparks and as a consequence fear and dread is created, but together with it clouds laden with rain appear gathered together which are full of messages of benefits for you. The thunder of these clouds. Indeed, all the forces of the universe trembling in themselves due to fear of the law of Allah, remain busy in performing their own duties, so that his rububiyyat becomes clearly apparent to each individual witnessing this in such a way that words of appreciation appear on their lips spontaneously. 1:1. As far as the destructions by lightning are concerned, they fall on those who make their abode in its path and wish to become destroyed themselves. And all this takes place according to the law of Mashiach of Allah. These people, despite these living evidences, dispute with you concerning the divine law, and do not understand that whatever the law of Allah is doing in the universe, how very strict it also is in holding to account in the human world. 13:12-13. But this peace and tranquility, these prosperities and successes, are not achieved by sitting around and by merely reciting verbally, O Allah, O Allah. For this it is essential to follow the laws of that Allah, by disobeying whose laws destructions descend. Hence, the nation that desires that its endeavors produce constructive results should obey his laws, because every desire to produce a constructive result is connected to his law. By rejecting his law, for those people who desire to produce constructive results via someone else's law, this desire and effort of theirs will go to waste. Just like the desire and effort of that individual goes to waste who, by holding out his hand from a distance, desires that water should reach his mouth by itself naturally, even though water can never reach his lips like this. This is against the law of Allah. Therefore, the desires of those who reject his law can never bear fruit. 4:123. 13:14. In this regard, see also the topics of dua, supplication, and jannat, paradise. After this, attention is drawn once again towards the manifestations of nature. The Quran states, "These people who reject our law, do they not see that, whoever is in the highs and lows of the heavens, they are willingly or unwillingly are bowing their head in acceptance before our law." 3:83, 41:11. If these people do not wish to witness the great things of the universe, then they should at the very least reflect on their own body, which is under the obedience of the physical law of Allah. They should observe how their shadow is in one direction from morning till noon, and then remains in the other direction from noon till evening. Do they have control over this, that they can change the direction of this shadow? These people will accept this point, that they do not have any control over changing it. But they will not accept this, that the law of Allah, extending beyond the shadow, is also applicable to their self as well as on human society. 13:15. A detailed discussion regarding the prostration to Unwa Karhan, willingly or unwillingly, of the things of the universe has been given in the meanings of the Quran, Volume 4, which can be looked at once again. Nonetheless, the example given about shadows in the above verse is the reflection of a profound reality. In any case, everything in the universe follows the laws of Allah, nothing has the authority to go against this. Man is a holder of responsibility, but as far as his physical life is concerned, he, too, is obliged to follow the laws of nature. For example, his life depends on breathing. He has the choice whether to breathe or not, but he does not have control over this, that if he stops breathing, even then he remains alive. In this he is constrained like other animals. One clear example of his constraint and choice is his shadow. A person has the choice whether to walk to the right or to the left, go forward or backwards, but he does not have this choice that he can also change the direction of his shadow according to his will. The law of nature defines its direction, over the changing of which he has no control. This same law of Allah is also functioning in his life as a human being. Though he has the choice whether to live his life according to the divine values or whether to disobey these, he does not have the choice that even if he lives his life counter to these values and laws of Allah, to not allow those destructions to materialize which are the consequence of this disobedience, i.e., to halt these. In other words, he has control over his deeds but no control over altering the consequences of these deeds. The state of those who do not have iman in the divine values, followers of secularism, is such that they only accept the truth of the laws of the universe, they do not accept the laws of Allah regarding their own internal world. The consequence of this mentality of theirs is that, if you ask them whose law is operating in the external world, the earth and the heavens, then in the same way that you assert, they will also assert that only the law of Allah is established and functioning there. 23:84-90, 29:61-63. Say to them, then why do you, forsaking his laws, make other forces your patron in your internal world, the state of whose helplessness is such that, leaving aside others, these do not even possess the authority for the benefit and loss of their own being. When you accept Allah as the ilah of the heavens, then why do you not accept him as the ilah of the earth? 6:3, 21:21-22, 43:84. After presenting these evidences, ask them, can the blind and the seeing be equal? Or is it possible that darkness and light can become identical? 35:19. Or ask them that those entities which they assign as partners in the functioning of Allah, have they produced any creation like Allah's creation, and whether the creation of both matches with the other, due to which they have arrived at this conclusion that Allah is not one but that there are others like him. Announce to them that this belief of theirs is batil. Allah alone is the creator of everything. He is unparalleled and unique, and the sole possessor of all powers and supreme over everything. 13:16. By reflecting on the verses which have been quoted above in the elucidation of verse 13:16, the facts will become ever clearer. This is the reason why the Quran does not recognize it as being iman for every individual to accept Allah according to his own individual concept. It accepts only that iman as being iman billah, which is based on that Allah whose concept is presented by the Quran. A detailed discussion regarding this is available in the Meanings of the Quran, Volume 1. In the universe, together with good there is also evil, i.e., together with constructive forces there are also destructive forces. By not having the correct meaning of these problems of life before him, man not only becomes a victim of misconceptions, rather he becomes misguided. Among them one important problem is that of good and evil. The conundrum which emerges because of this is known in the language of philosophy as St. Thomas's enigma. That conundrum is this, that if evil is a creation by God and remains functioning because of his will, then God is not an absolute good. If it remains functioning against the will of God, then God is not omnipotent. This conundrum arises due to not understanding the true meaning of good and evil. In the universe the process of evolution is continuous and abiding. The summary of the doctrine of evolution is that in whatever form or whatever stage life is at, its confrontation takes place with an opposing force. If this species has the ability to live, and the potential and power to advance forward, then by overcoming the opposing force it progresses forward. If no such power exists, then by becoming overpowered by the opposing force it disappears, and if the situation is such that there is no confrontation with an opposing force, then it becomes static. In the previous volumes of the Meanings of the Quran, a great deal of light has been shed on this issue under the topics of the tussle between haqq and batil, the theory of evolution, and Iblis, or shaitan. Study of these topics will help in comprehending this issue. In the Quran, evil, shar, or destructive forces are defined by the term Iblis or shaitan. An explanation of this has also been given in previous volumes. In the Hebrew language the meaning of shaitan is a hinderer, i.e., someone who creates obstructions. The meaning of confrontation and encounter is clear in this. Iblis is also a specific topic of Iqbal's. He considers this confrontation essential for the growth and evolution of life, and also declares only that individual to be a mu'min in whom there is the ability and power to confront and overpower Iblis. Iqbal has this complaint against present-day Muslims that they simply do not have the courage to confront the destructive forces of evil, batil. He describes this reality in Javed Nama in such a captivating style that as the visionary gaze continues to ponder on it, one becomes amazed. Iblis appeals in front of Rabbul Izzat, the Omnipotent, that if this creation of yours was so gutless, cowardly, and weak, then what was the need to give me so much power? To crack a walnut there is no need for a road roller. This is the significance of confrontation in life. To what an immense extent the path to Jannat is laid with patience testing, courage demanding, earth-shattering, and heart-breaking confrontations. Allah has created forces in the universe and provided man with the potential that he should subjugate these forces with it, and also with the authority to use these for whatever purpose he desires. If he employs these forces, in which his own powers are also included, in the light of Allah's wahi for constructive purposes, then these forces also become good, care, and this act of man is also an act of care. Contrary to this, if he employs these for destructive purposes, then these forces become shar, evil, and these acts of man are also evil. From this it is obvious that Allah did not create shar, He only created forces and potentials. It is man who turns these into shar. Allah bestowed the guidance of Wahi which leads wholly to good, 1630. This is why it was caused to be announced from the lips of a Momin that you bestow only good upon good, 326, it is we who create shar. I have also discussed this point in my Lugat al-Quran. It appears appropriate to quote the related excerpt here. In Surah Al-Falaq a supplication is taught to remain protected from shar, 113:2, i.e. to be protected from the shar of whatever has been created. It is obvious from this that evil is not a permanent entity in itself which has been created separately, as was the belief among Zoroastrians. There is nothing in the universe which is in itself either shar, evil, or care, good. There is an aspect of both shar and care in everything. The aspect of shar in it should be avoided and the aspect of care should be adopted. If water remains underneath a boat, then it is all good, care, but if it enters the boat, then it will become evil, shar. Employing and utilizing every force of the universe in the light of the Wahi of Allah is care, and using it for the destruction of mankind is shar. In light of these explanations, let us examine the next verse of Surah Ar-Ra'd. Now what remains is that if it is a fact that everything in the universe is all His creation, then why is it that together with clear and clean water, there is also debris, and together with conveniences there are also inconveniences? With care there is shar too, and together with haq there is also batil. Say to them that this is because the law of the tussle between haq and batil is functioning here, and through this tussle the universe advances forward by traversing its stages of evolution. You can understand it through an example like this: He sends down rain from the clouds and streams and rivers start to flow according to their capacity. Due to the flow of water the dirt and debris from the land rises to the surface as a foam. And the torrent of the flood sweeps it away, and the land becomes spruce and clean, or consider it like this, that when ore is heated in fire so that ornaments and other necessary things can be made from it, its impurities rise to the surface like a foam, and the pure metal remains beneath. In the same way in the universe, according to Allah's law of tussle, constructive forces continually collide with destructive forces, and destructive forces go to waste like scum, and that which is beneficial for mankind remains behind. This is Allah's law of elimination and establishment. 1317, see also, 1339, 2118, 42:24. In light of these descriptions which have previously been presented, the meaning of the verse becomes clear. This is termed the law of elimination and establishment in verse 1339. This verse has, in any case, already been discussed in relation to the tussle between haq and batil in the meanings of the Quran, Volume 3, further details can be found there. However, the fundamental principle which has been explained at the end of the verse is a summary of deen, the aim of Islam and the most trustworthy criterion to judge human deeds. It is stated: that deed endures which is beneficial for mankind, 1317. The degree to which any ideology, any system, any deed is a cause for benefit for mankind, it will have an equivalent ability to endure. Endurance is solely for that. This is such a criterion from which it is verified as to which human deeds, a'mal-e saleh, hasanat, are fit for sawab, i.e. are righteous, only those which are beneficial for other human beings. The meaning of endurance is that they are a cause for survival in this life and are also those that will endure in the next life. Only the Quran could have presented such a lofty principle in such brief words. Then also ponder on what beneficial for mankind means, i.e. those actions which are not beneficial solely for some family, a specific tribe, or a particular race, so much so, that not even for a specific nation, rather, they are beneficial for universal humanity. This is the objective and aim of deen, the meaning and goal of Islam, the need for establishment of the Islamic system, and this is the justification for the forming of an Islamic state. This is the purpose and necessity for the emergence and rise of the Ummat-e-Muslima. You are that Ummat from among men whose hands dispense beneficence which has been created for the good of mankind. 3:110. Can any system devised by men come anywhere near this sublime status? And can any other system be a guarantor of world peace? In my opinion, this precious universal principle of the Quran should be engraved on the gate of every pillar of government and should be carved on the arched entrance of every mosque. Western politicians had stated the law of evolution to be survival of the fittest, but the Quran has described the principle to be survival of what is beneficial. Survival of the fittest is for your own self, while that which confers benefit is for the whole of humanity. This same principle of the tussle between haqq and batil is also functioning among nations. From the point of view of this division, only two categories remain in the world. The first, the one which is firm on what is good for mankind, and the second, the one which erects obstacles in its path. In this way, Allah makes things clear by example for those people who say, "Welcome," in an extremely balanced way to the invitation of Allah, so that they come to know what kind of confrontation there will be with the destructive forces against the message which they have risen up with, and how victory will ultimately belong to haqq. As far as those people are concerned who do not welcome and accept this invitation, instead oppose it, say to them that according to the law of Allah their destruction is a certainty. Today they have an opportunity by accepting this invitation to save themselves from destruction. But if they do not do this, and if the time of manifestation of consequences arrives, then at that time, if it happens that they have the wealth of all the world, and together with that they have an equal amount of wealth gathered with them, and they desire that by offering all this wealth they can save themselves from this annihilation, then this can never happen. At that juncture, the accountability of their deeds will be very severe against them, and their abode will be a hell of destructions. And it is indeed a very dreadful destination. 13:18. These two categories can never be equal. Just think, that there is one individual who has conviction that whatever has been sent to you from your Rabb is haqq, and the other one is he who is completely blind regarding this reality. Can these two ever be equal? But from these examples reality can only appear before those people who make use of intellect and wisdom. 13:19. Iqbal terms this intellect which is in pursuit of individual interest and endeavoring to preserve it, as intellect of self-interest, and he calls that intellect which is the torch-bearer for the good of mankind, intellect of universal interest. It is the possessors of this very intellect whose traits the Quran describes in these words. That which functions according to emotions, and shows the paths of individual vested interests, is not intellect and wisdom, rather, it is that which is the intellect and vision of those people, who fulfill the commitment which they have made with Allah. And they never break their covenant. 13:20, see also, 9:111. Together with this, those who join together these broken connections of humanity which Allah had commanded to be joined, 2:27, because they are fearful that if this is not done then its consequence will be destruction and ruin. 13:21. An important attribute of theirs is described here as they join that which Allah has commanded to be joined. Contrary to this, it is stated in Surah Al-Baqarah about the Fasiqeen and Musaideen that they break that which Allah has commanded to be joined, 2:27. See also verse 13:25. This is further clarified in Surah Al-Baqarah 2:213, and in a verse of Surah Yunus 10:19. It is the wish of Allah to shape all mankind into a global brotherhood. The Meanings of the Quran, Volume 3. In the beginning all human beings used to live in the shape of one ummat, one brotherhood, then differences arose among them, and they became divided into different tribes and different nations, and then within a nation became divided into different castes, factions, or religious sects, and in the form of political parties. By eliminating all these differences of mankind, the aim of Allah's wahi was to make mankind again into a single ummat by forming it into one universal brotherhood. Its beginning was done from these people, Jamaat-e-Mu'minin, which is called the Ummat-e-Muslima. Its duty was to encompass the whole of mankind within its domain by expanding its sphere ever wider. This was the ultimate aim of Islam and the purpose of Deen. But what did this ummah do? Instead of eliminating the differences of mankind and shaping it into one global brotherhood, it became divided itself into separate nations, sects, factions, and parties, and imposed that hell on themselves in which non-Muslims were living their life. The Quran has declared sectarianism as being shirk, so how can those people who themselves are ailing from shirk be the flag bearers of the unity of humanity? Please remember, Islam is the name of joining the relationships of humanity, not that of breaking them. Without regard for color, race, language, or nation, to shape only one universal human brotherhood with the same iman. From this, man will be able to rid himself of this hell in which he is gravely trapped. But the nations of the world will not be prepared to give up their partisan vested interests easily. For this there will be the need for persistent endeavors on the path of which great patience testing stages will come. Therefore this journey will be demanding of great strength and determination. If the Muslims of today want to fulfill this wish of Allah, then first of all they will have to eliminate their own religious sectarianism and become one united ummah themselves. Then, by joining Muslim countries and nations together in this relationship of the Quran, the rope of Allah, to create unity in an Ummah-e-Muslimah. After this will come the stage of the unity of universal mankind. The practical program for this, the establishment of the system of Salat, and the system of Rabi'ah Bayat. Those who, for the achievement of this supreme objective which their Rabb has defined for them, remain persistently active with strength and fortitude and shape the system of Salat. And whatever means of nourishment are provided to them, whether these are latent potentials or tangible means of sustenance, they use it for the welfare of mankind, according to need, secretly or openly, and in this way, remove the imbalances of the society through their balanced conduct. These are those people whose end is extremely pleasant. 1322, see also, 11:114, 28:54. The question which arises here is that the ummah which is being asked to initiate this program has hundreds of faults. Firstly, the rectification of these is essential. The Quran itself has informed us of the method for this, i.e., the rectification of losses caused by destructive deeds is through performing the maximum number of constructive deeds. This is a supreme principle. Its meaning can also be understood through the topic of tawbah, but an even clearer explanation is from the verse of Surah Hud, 11:114, where it is stated that hasanat flush away negative deeds. Compensation for wrong actions is through good deeds. This principle holds the status of a foundation not only for individuals but for the reformation of a society. These are the people whose end is extremely pleasant. These are those very people for whom the end is very good in this abode, worldly life, i.e., a paradisiacal society in which they will enter, they, and also their parents, wives, and children, provided their deeds are righteous, as a result of which they have qualified for this life. And they will have malaika descending on them from all directions, 41:30, who will bring these glad tidings that for you there is every kind of peace and security. This is because you confronted difficulties with fortitude and resoluteness. Hence, look how pleasant is the conclusion of your life after this struggle. 13:23-24. Here, this point needs attention, that the relatives of the inhabitants of paradise, parents, wives, children, will not enter paradise on the basis of merely being relatives. For this, the condition is that their deeds are righteous. According to the law of requital, kinship with even the highest authority cannot be of benefit. The decision is according to the personal deeds of each one. Note in Surah Hud that every messenger began his invitation with this declaration: I do not ask for any remuneration for my message. 11:51. This is reiterated at numerous other places. The importance of invitation and preaching without remuneration is so vital that the Quran states, those people who are on the right guidance and do not ask you for any remuneration, follow them. 36:21. About the descent of Malaika on the Mu'mineen, the Quran states. In the case of those who say, our Rabb is Allah, and further stand straight and steadfast, Malaika descend on them. 41:30. After this those people are mentioned who live their life in contravention to this. Contrary to this, there are those people who break this covenant which they had firmly made with Allah and break into pieces those relationships of humanity which they were instructed to join, 13:21-27, and in this way keep creating imbalances and chaos in the world. These people become deprived of the bounties of life and their end is perdition. 13:25. Since this is the opposite of the former way of life, hence, there is no need to describe it further. This is the general style of the Quran, that it clarifies its aim by comparing the opposite, and this technique is very eloquent. It is stated above that for those people who live their life in opposition to the program of Mashiach, their end is ruinous. From this, the question which ordinarily comes to mind is the general observation that these people are very prosperous and successful, and live a life of luxury and opulence. What is the cause for this? Remember, the means of sustenance in the world is obtained according to the law of Allah. Whoever wishes to have plenty, and makes an effort for it, he will get plenty. Whoever wishes just enough, will get enough. This is all according to the physical law of Allah. The one who puts a greater effort into his pastures, his crop is better. 17:18-21. What we have stated here is that those who sever the relationships of humanity, their end is ruin. These are the people who think that life is only this worldly life. There is nothing after this, hence, they declare the benefits of this life as their objective, and remain engrossed in this, and do not understand that if the future of man, the life of the hereafter, remains dark, then the prosperity of this life holds no status at all. 13:26, see also, 2:200-201. The Quran presents its claims through reason and evidence and demands that these should be reflected upon in the light of knowledge and vision, and that its truth should be evaluated on the basis of this criterion. But the childlike human mind, and the majority of humanity is still living a life in its infancy, is habituated to magic and supernatural manifestations. Hence, in reply to the invitations from the Anbiya have kept on demanding miracles. This is also what happened during the era of Rasool. The addressees demanded miracles, and declining this, the conveyor of Wahi informed them what the reason was for this refusal and reticence. This has already been discussed in the Sura a few pages back under verse 13:7. Here, this objection has once again been presented before us. Now let us return to that same objection which has been mentioned earlier, 13:7, i.e., these people who have no iman in the truth of this code of life say, why has this messenger not received any tangible sign, miracle, from his Rabb? Say to them that the law of Allah is that it has been left to the choice and intent of man whether to go on the right or the wrong path. Therefore, whoever wishes to tread on the wrong path, the law of Allah will allow him to tread on the wrong path. It will not forcibly turn him away from that path and bring him to the right path. And whichever individual approaches the right path, the law of Allah will allow him to walk on the right path. This is the reason that the invitation to Allah is presented through reason and evidence, so that every individual accepts it with the full satisfaction of his heart. There is no kind of compulsion on him, neither physical nor psychological. 13:27. Through the belief of taqdeer man obtains a false sense of complacency. When this belief becomes inherently established that whatever happens is because of the will of Allah and that whatever Allah does, there is good in it for us. It is another matter that we may not comprehend this, however, we should, nonetheless, remain contented with it. Man gains false satisfaction due to these beliefs, but by eliminating this kind of deception of the self, the Quran informs us how true contentment can be achieved. Only this is the law of Allah, due to which conviction of the heart and mind can be achieved, and without this kind of conviction the question of Iman does not even arise. Iman is only theirs who accept the truth willingly with the full conviction of their heart and mind. Here again, true contentment of the heart can be achieved through that law of Allah, dhikr, which has been noted above, i.e., that there should be no kind of coercion over the choice and intent of man, and he should acknowledge truth willingly. 1328. The meaning of the word dhikr has been explained in detail in previous volumes. In a nutshell, it means that keeping the commands and laws of the Quran before us when making decisions on matters confronting us, and acting in accordance with them, is called dhikr Allah. It is extremely important to make this meaning of dhikr widespread because tasawwuf, mysticism, has accorded it such inaccurate meanings which are contrary to the truth and basis of Islam. Support for whatever we have said is provided in the very next verse itself of the Quran. It is stated, "Those people who accept Iman in this way, and then do such works according to the program defined by Allah, due to which the potentials of their self become awakened, and the disorganized affairs of humanity become resolved, tuba, for them there are all kinds of prosperities and a very balanced and beautiful abode of nourishment." 1329. The root of the word tuba is tyb, which means very pleasing, perpetual prosperity and a life of tranquility, an abundance of pleasures both of this world and the hereafter. Like tayyib, tuba is also one such comprehensive word in which all the pleasantness of the world and the hereafter have been encapsulated. For those whom Allah says, tuba is for them, what else can they desire? After this it is stated that whatever is being said in this Quran is not something new. Messengers came before this and continued to communicate Allah's wahi to the people, and those peoples also opposed the messages of Allah in the same way that, O Rasool, your nation are opposing it. O Rasool, we have sent you as a messenger to this nation in the same way that messengers were sent to many nations before this. The aim is that whatever wahi we reveal unto you, you should present it to them. 5:67. The state of these people is such that they do not acknowledge Allah as Rahman. Tell them that He is my Rabb, and other than Him no one else has authority and power in the universe. My complete trust is on His firmly established laws and their outcomes. And this is why in every matter I go back to Him. 1330. Then their attention is directed towards the subject of miracles, and it is stated, from the demand which arises from these people for tangible miracles. 1327, the thought also arises in the hearts of some members of your Jamaat that if their demand is fulfilled then they will all accept Iman, and that will be really good. Say to them that, even if there was such a Quran because of which mountains had started to move, and far off distances of the land could have been traversed in the twinkling of an eye, so much so, that even if corpses had started to talk, even then these people would never have accepted Iman. 6:7, 6:25, 6:112, 15:14-15, 17:90-93. This is the reason why Allah has kept all affairs under His control, His laws, and in this respect the law is that whoever wishes to obtain guidance, he should make use of his intellect and reasoning. 10:100. Do people of your Jamaat, Mu'minin, still not understand this matter, that if the aim had been to make people mu'min forcibly then this was not at all difficult for Allah, He would simply have created people like that, so that all treaded the right path, but He intentionally did not do this. He has left this matter to the choice and intent of man. Hence, these people who are rejecting this invitation will continue to adopt the path of transgression, and will even go to war in opposition of it, the consequence of which will be that troubles will continue to visit them because of their misdeeds. And this process will magnify to such an extent that the affliction of war will itself descend close to their abode, Makkah. This process will continue like this, until this struggle reaches the decisive stage, and they suffer the final defeat. This will certainly come to pass because the law of Allah is immutable in its manifestation of consequences. His promises are of a surety fulfilled. 1331. Regarding this question that, if it had been the aim of Allah to forcibly make people accept deen, then He would have created man such that all men would have been on the path of this deen from birth. This has been covered in the meanings of the Quran, Volume 1 and 5. What will be the final stage of this struggle? The Quran states, All this will take place slowly, and during this time these people will continue to ridicule your announcements. But you should not lose heart at this. This kind of ridicule also used to take place with the messengers before you. Those people also received a period of respite according to our law of requital, but when, despite this, they did not divert from their wrong path, they then became seized. At that time they came to know how the consequences of their deeds were pursuing them, and how firm is our grip. 1332. Ridicule of the messengers of Allah and his signs has also been mentioned in numerous places. This is the final state of denial. The fundamental teaching of the Quran is Ilahi Wahid, i.e., the possessor of all powers is one Allah. The human mind in its stage of infancy could not accept this either. Rather, you could say that this supreme concept could not lodge in his intellect. This is why he had devised different ilah, gods, for different forces. This is known as shirk. In how many ways and what kinds of styles the Quran has refuted this. One aspect of this process is the following. Say to them, just reflect a little on this, that, when the state of harmony and information gathering of the law of requital of that Allah is such that it monitors the deeds of every individual in such a way, can he be dependent for help for himself on those whom these people declare as his partners? Say to them that, though you have been informed about the expanse of Allah's knowledge, now regarding those entities whom you declare as his partners, just explain the details of their knowledge also, so that it can be determined what knowledge is it on the face of the earth that has been left outside the sphere of knowledge of Allah, and about which you wish to inform Allah through these partners who know nothing. Or is it that you have never delved into the depth of these matters and pondered, only superficially, repeated whatever is heard? The truth is that these people have no evidence of the truth of their claim. They make use only of their emotions, due to which, their schemes appear very alluring to them, and it is because of this that they have halted from coming onto the right path. The law of Allah is that those people who do not make use of their intellect and reasoning and are carried away by the flow of their emotions can never come to the right path. So for those people who adopt the wrong path in this way, who can possibly show them the right path? 1333. One notable aspect of shirk is mentioned in this, i.e., these people carve idols so that they can pass their requests on to Allah. 39:3. When we, Muslims, read these kinds of verses, we envisage the beliefs of the mushrikeen, their gods and goddesses, and their places of worship. We never glance into our own abodes, at how by visiting the shrines of holy men we vociferously offer supplications, O holy saint, please pray to Allah for us, the belief being that Allah is neither aware of our circumstances, nor hears our supplication. This elder is near to Allah, so he is able to convey our request to Allah. Is this not the same shirk which is mentioned in the above verse? What will be the end of such people? The Quran declares, the consequence of their wrong path will be that destruction will come upon them both in this worldly life, and the destruction of the hereafter will be far more severe than this. There will be none who can save them from the grip of the law of requital of Allah. 1334. The Quran reiterates this reality that the devastating hell of the wrong path in life starts from this very world, and similarly the pleasures of a righteous pattern of life too. In other words, the commencement of Jannat and Jahannam is from this very place and proceeds continuously up to the next life. In the verse under view, punishment both in this world and in the hereafter has been referred to. This was about hell. In contrast to this, heaven is. Contrary to this, there will be a life of Jannat for those who tread on the righteous path. The example of this Jannat can be understood as follows. There is a garden in which streams of water are flowing, because of which it remains ever green and fresh. Its fruits are not seasonal, they are perpetual, and its convenience is eternal. 1425, 47:15. This will be the pattern of life for those who, avoiding the evil path, take care of the laws of Allah. In contrast to them, for those people who reject these laws, their end will be ruin and destruction. 1335. Abstract realities can only be presented figuratively. Every reality about the life of the hereafter is metaphysical, hence the Quran has described it metaphorically. These realities should not be considered as physical and visible. Through metaphors a concept can be formed in our mind about them. What they are in actuality we cannot comprehend at our present level of perception. As has been noted at numerous places, the Quran describes the life of nations in this world also by Jannat and Jahannam. Their description is, in fact, also metaphorical and allegorical, e.g. it describes rivers of milk and streams of honey. By this is not meant actual streams of milk and honey, instead it means abundance and plenty. We also say in our language that rivers of milk flow over there. Therefore, whether it is Jannat or Jahannam of the hereafter or of this world, their descriptions should be viewed as metaphorical. And it is obvious that these metaphors and allegories could only be understood by the nation, Arabs, being addressed by the Quran at that time. They used to consider the social conveniences and comforts of the civilization and culture of Persia and Rome as an ideal, hence, examples given in the Quran relate mostly to those societies. This topic has been written about in detail previously, therefore this brief summary is considered sufficient here. The life of Jannat is gained by following the Quran. In verse 1058 of Surah Yunus, Allah has told the Jamaat-e-Mu'minin that they should celebrate the receipt of such an immense bounty. This has been reiterated here when it is stated, "The people on whom we have bestowed this kind of code of guidance, by following which the outcomes are so pleasant, celebrate with joy everything which is sent towards you." As far as other Jamaats are concerned, there are such people among them to whom some commands appear very irksome. Say to them, whether you like it or dislike it, I have only been commanded to do this, that I should only adopt the obedience and rule of Allah and not associate any partner with Him. I invite you to this maslak, way, and I, too, remain bound to it. 1336. Regarding what has been said here that there are also such people who have iman in some parts of this book and reject other parts or commands which appear distasteful to them, details about this have already been covered in verse 2:85 of Surah Al-Baqarah. It is proclaimed there that the consequence of such a path is a life of ruin and humiliation in the world and a severe chastisement in the hereafter. Islam is this, that in every aspect of life there should be total obedience to the laws of Allah and no other authority should be associated in this. This is the purpose for which the Quran has been sent. And it is for this very purpose that we have sent down this code of laws in such a clear manner. O addressee! If, even after finding this knowledge and truth, you obey the ideas of these misguided people, then let it be understood that before the law of Allah you can have no friend and helper, nor can anyone save you from its grip. 1337. After that a response is provided to the objection of the opponents about why this messenger is a man just like ordinary human beings. The Quran states that this matter is not confined to merely this messenger, messengers used to come to you too, people of the book. They also used to be men just like ordinary human beings. Decisions by Allah are made according to laws. The issue of the messengers being human or superhuman has no relevance in this. As far as this objection of theirs is concerned that how can a man like them have been made a messenger, say to them, before even you, we had sent many messengers, they were human beings just like you and, they also had wives and children. After this, coming to this demand of theirs that the destruction of which you mention repeatedly, why does it not come? Say to them that, this matter is not within the control of a messenger that he can produce this kind of clear sign whenever he wishes, these things appear in their own time according to the law of Allah. His law is this, that for every act and its consequence there is a time gap which is called its respite, or ajal. This ajal occurs according to a law, i.e. there is a law established for this matter about how long a deed takes to materialize its consequence. Similarly, there is an ajal for nations too. 1338. Refer also to nation or nations in previous volumes, 4 and 5, in which the laws relating to the rise and fall, and change and replacement of nations have been discussed. This is also called the law of elimination and establishment. Whichever nation, ideology of life, or system of life does not have the capability that it should prevail, it becomes erased according to the law of Allah, and whichever proves itself to be strong and balanced according to the law of Allah, it is allowed to endure. 1317, 42:24. This all takes place according to those fundamental laws which Allah has established along with the creation of universe, and according to which its organization and execution is taking place. 1339. The law of elimination and establishment is a supreme reality. The process of evolution has continued according to this law and keeps on continuing. Those species which did not have the ability to endure, disappeared, those which had this ability, survived. The verdict regarding the life and death of nations is also according to this law. In verse 42:24 of Surah Shura it is stated that Batil becomes eliminated and Haqq becomes strengthened, and that all of this takes place according to the laws of Allah. You will see that at every place it has been made clear that all this transpires according to laws, not purely by chance or through trickery. The fact that this law is immutable, and there is no exception in it for anyone's sake, is clarified by the eminent life of Rasulullah himself when it is stated. Those things about which they are being promised are in any case going to take place. It is possible that some matters may occur before your own eyes, and it is also possible that you may die before this, hence, you should not speculate on when these results will manifest. Your task is to keep passing on this code of guidance to the people. It is our task to see when the outcomes appear according to our law. 1340. This topic has also been covered under verse 1046 of Surah Yunus. Details can be found there. The meanings of the Quran, Volume 6. Together with drawing attention to this law, it is made clear to Rasulullah that the revolution has already commenced. That which they are constantly demanding, that when will the system of Rabu'iyat be established in which their individual vested interests will end, do they not see how by seizing land, and the means of production, out of the hands of big landlords, we keep on reducing their possessions. 21:24. In the same way, there will arrive a day when there will be nothing left in their hands, all will become available for mankind. 41:10. This is the decision of Allah, and regarding the decision which Allah makes there is no power in the world which can avert those decisions. He is very swift in accountability. 1341. It has been noted in the meanings of the Quran, Volume 1 that according to the economic system of the Quran, land cannot remain in individual ownership, this will remain in the possession of the state, so that it can arrange for the nourishment of the ordinary people in society. Reference to the initial phase of this revolution has been made in Volume 1. When this revolution reaches its completion, then all means of sustenance will become available for the fulfillment of the requirements of all those who are needy, no private ownership will remain over it. In the verse being discussed, the meaning of art has been taken to be that of land, and according to the Quranic economic system this meaning is also correct. But in verse 21-24, after these very words, it is stated, will their control continue to remain in place? Here, that control is being mentioned which is possessed through feudal lords and jagirdars, hence the meaning of control is also correct in these verses. Reduction and abolition of ownership of the land, and control being eliminated, are intrinsically linked. In the Quranic revolution no one will be dependent on another or be a subject. No one can stop this revolution. Even before them, groups with vested interests, many great plots were attempted, so that the decisions of Allah should not be implemented, but not one of these tricks of anyone succeeded. Their plots kept producing results according to the laws of Allah. The truth is that whatever any individual does, Allah is well aware of it. Hence, those who deny the laws of Allah will soon find out who will ultimately triumph, and what will be the end of each. 1342. Leaving the rest of the world to one side, the greatest intrigues against it were carried out by us, Muslims, who brought in the system of Malikiyat. Together with this, the system of priesthood and that of capitalism appeared automatically. Even today, having become jaded with the capitalist system, the world is in search of such a system in which no human being is holding out his hands to anyone for his bread and butter, meaning neither being a subject, nor being subservient to anyone. But even today our religious priesthood declares the capitalist system as being the demand of Islam. But those who are opposing the Quranic system, they will see who ultimately achieves success. Rejection of the Quran means rejecting the risalat of the messenger. Those people who deny the law of Allah say that you are not a messenger of Allah. This is because you do not bring about that destruction quickly about which you warn us. Say to them that I absolutely do not wish to enter into a dispute with you on this. The decision which will become manifest between you and me according to the law of Allah will be sufficient as an evidence of my truthfulness, or of the evidence of that person who is acquainted with the law of Allah, and so can understand whether whatever I present is the law of Allah or is invented by me. 1343. Perhaps you may not be aware that among our ulama, scholars, there is no ilm, ul-kitab, knowledge of the book. They are taught dozens of subjects, but the Quran is not part of their syllabus. In the final year the tafsir of Surah Al-Baqarah is taught as a matter of sacredness, and that is it. Only he will be able to bring about the Quranic revolution who has knowledge of the book.